Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pixelists podcast, the podcast about all the nerdy things we love and enjoy. I'm Will, that's Blake, and man, it's Thursday, my guy, which means two things now. We got Critical Role tonight, and we got more Legend of Vox Machina tonight. It's a glorious day.
And Chick-fil-A?
And Chick-fil-A, bro.
Gotta get you still on your routine for Thursdays?
It's not like as cemented, but
didn't they know your name or something?
Oh, bro, they know me for sure.
They know me for sure. Died? Or like when you're not there, do they think like something's happened?
Probably. I don't know.
Can we check on this guy?
I wouldn't be surprised.
I just remember when I've worked in restaurants and like someone who's like your regular like stops coming, it just feels like everything's falling apart.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Have you actually, not to get too lost on this, but I haven't been out still. Are the roads okay? Have you been out?
Yeah, they're okay. I mean, all the schools are closed tomorrow. I hope you guys care about our details.
We've been getting some ice storms recently, so
yeah, it's been a bit wild. So I'm trapped at home with a toddler for a week now. So,
save me.
Today she pooped on the floor, so I got that going for me.
That's nice. Yeah. Parenthood.
Is it TMI if I tell you I can't get the smell of poop out of my hands?
No, because
I scrubbed it several times, and for whatever reason, it's still there.
If they ever make it smell-o-vision through the internet, then maybe we'd have a problem, but that's fine.
Yeah,
I don't mind it. But yeah, so I don't know.
Doing today?
I don't know. But I guess real quick before we dive in, y'all, apologies for getting this episode out so late. Blake and I have both been so busy recently, especially with Vox Machina having dropped, and we've been putting out all sorts of content. So we apologize for being a little late on this, but we still made it, so that's what's important. And
it's mostly my fault. We were due to record it, I think, yesterday, and then I had so much work going on that I told Will, like, I can't do it today. And so
that's not true. He's not mostly his fault. We've both. It's just been hectic recently.
Yeah,
but
a lot of content. I think once Legend of Vox Machina clears up, that'll be one big chunk that we're no longer worried about, even though we're loving it. But like editing the reaction videos, your breakdowns, there's just a lot happening with those. So, which if you've been following those, thank you guys. Really appreciate it. And Will's done an amazing job on those breakdowns.
No, we really appreciate it. Channel's been getting a lot of love. So if anybody new is checking out our podcast for the first time, we really appreciate it. Real quick, we'll be doing a watch party tonight, probably not long after this podcast gets uploaded on YouTube. So if you see this and you're watching Vox Machina, come join us. There'll be a link in the Discord. We'll be having it over there. But other than that, you got anything else?
Just excited to talk about one of my favorite hobbies. Little Critical Role, little D&D.
Yeah, baby. All right. Well, yeah, with that being said, let's dive into the episode. But before we dive in, we like to give a recap of each episode. And if you happen to be watching this recap right now, it might be because you're on our separate video that we cut out and host separately just for your convenience if you want to catch up each week. So if you find yourself on just that recap video and you want to hear the full podcast of us discussing the episode, that will be linked down in the description box as well. And with that being said, let's get into this thing. So episode 46 of Campaign 3, Night at Ligament Manor. So we pick back up with Bell's Hells arriving at Nana Morri's, which is called the Ligament Manor, and she's currently mixing them a cocktail. So Fern introduces everybody, and Nana takes a special look at Ashton's head because she's really like amazed by it. And when she touches it, there's like this weird reaction, and Ashton's like, we need to talk more about this later. Morri finishes mixing the drinks, gives everyone their drink, and it's kind of like this dark, cloudy liquid with like chunks of something in it. And she calls it Moonlight Glycerin. Everyone drinks it, and they come to realize that they have dark vision, and Matt lets them know that they have dark vision for the next 8 hours. The party then fills Morri in on everything that's been happening, but not before actually this rabbit-looking creature jumps up to greet Fern, and she introduces this creature as Peepers. Which is this creepy looking rabbit with like, it doesn't have actual eyes, but it has like eyes on its fur kind of. Anyway, Morri then asks, how is that lens I made for you, Fern, that you went and gave to the Nightmare King? And they're like, oh yeah, that was great. It was a success. And then Morgan's like, did the Nightmare King ask about me or anything? And she kind of drops these
Yeah.
vibes that they maybe had a interesting relationship. Um, but then they ask, hey, how much did Ira pay you for that looking glass? Like, did he trade you a favor or anything? And Morgan says, no, nothing. I actually owed him a favor. Then they ask, okay, well, so what do you do exactly? And she's like,
do here?
what do you do here? She says that, to fill her time, she's mostly an observer. She's not the master of fates because that's the matron of Raven's job, but she has a keen eye for those who like to tangle the threads of fate. And that when no one else is looking, maybe she dabbles here and there. She says there are so many tangles right now because of the apogee solstice. And then they're like, yeah, we wanted to ask you about that. What do you know about these 3 Malleus keys? And she's aware of them, but she's not of an engineering mind. That's more the Nightmare King. So she doesn't know too much about them. Then she said, I already mentioned this, but she asks if the Nightmare King said anything about her. But then Fern asks, well, what do you know about Rudis? And Morgan doesn't really know much more than any normal person knows, just that it's, the small red moon that's been kind of flaring up more than typical. And they're like, okay, yeah. So do you know where the Malleus key is that's here? And she's like, yeah, just follow Rudis because she's pretty sure that that thing is what's keeping it showing up in the Feywild. Imogen then says, okay, if we do this and we are going back to the prime material plane, are you able to help us not get timey-wimeyed? Not time is a weird soup of the transportation. Can you assist with that? And she's like, well, I can try to help. I can't actually teleport you, but I do know a doorway that I can send you to. So more chatting. Laudna and Chetney kind of bond with Morgan a little bit over their love for crafting. Laudna introduces pate to her. And Chetney marvels at all of this interesting furniture that's around. And she actually says that, yeah, the tree made that, it grew that for me as a gift. And Chetney, really took a liking to that. Then the main head, which if you recall, Morgan has these 2 faces. The main one goes to sleep and the stomach one comes out. And they ask for more information on the party, excuse me. Yeah, so weird. Asks for more information on Fern when she was a child and why she was given over to Morgan. And she says that, it was to protect her from those that sought to do harm to her family. And they ask, was it a favor? And Morgan says, I was just keeping an eye on Fern, just like I had kept an eye on her mother. I protect things that I fancy. So then Fern's like, okay, let me give everyone a tour. So she first starts with her room, and it's very Fern. There are taxidermied creatures all over the place that she says Morgan can animate to make them sing when she's sad. There's curtains that are made of skin, and a lot of people are like, what? There's a big window that looks outside, but it's got a cage around it. And she's like, that's both to keep things out and me in, I think. Then she takes them to another room, which is Morgan's collection room. And Morgan is inside, and you're like, she asks for permission. Can I show everybody this room? And there's actually a group persuasion check that happens, but she agrees. And inside are just these shelves filled with hundreds of glass jars, wooden boxes, figurines, just faces of people, fairies. And they're like, oh my gosh, well, we have a gift for your collection. And they decide to give her the bust that they had gotten from Gianna Hexam. And which the bust, if you don't remember, is the one that contorts to whoever's looking at it. So it tries to contort to Morgan and actually cracks because it doesn't know how to represent her. And she's like, oh my gosh, I love it. And don't worry, I can fix it. No big deal. And they say, what are some of the things you're most proud of in this room? And she goes and takes down this locked jewelry box. And she says, inside is the heart of a lion guard. And she pulls out this key ring with hundreds of keys on it, takes one and unlocks it. And inside is this still beating heart. And she says the Lion Guard were these guards that were assigned to guard the Middlelands here in the Fae. This group is, they protect neutral places. And the champion of the Lion Guard asked me to keep his heart as a favor. And he lives as long as I keep this safe. They're like,
I love
what the
that
heck?
little lore.
Yeah, such a cool little tidbit. Ashton then jumps in and is like, hey, you know how you touched my head earlier and that was like weird? Could you mind checking me out again? So she does, and it has another reaction, and she like doesn't like it. She says, I don't know what this is. Like the magic feels new yet very, very old. And Ashton says, well, if you figure out anything else, like let me know. Fern then takes them to the garden, which is this beautiful garden that has all these shrubs that are like cut into the shape of people. And Fern says that she's the one that made these. The party can hear like a slight thumping noise coming from them, though. But before they can investigate further, a sun bear bursts around the corner, and Fern introduces this bear as Sweet Pea. They embrace, and he's like, are you staying? And she's like, well, not forever. And they ask Sweet Pea, hey, what's that thumping noise? And he says, I don't know, but when it starts getting louder, I'm supposed to water the plants. And they're like, okay. Then Fern takes them to what's called the Vardo, which is this kind of like small abode within the garden. And they go inside, and it's much larger inside than it appeared outside. And this is basically where they are going to be staying. There's like several beds in here. So the party kind of regroups and kind of catches each other up on all the latest that they hadn't had a chance to yet. Imogen tells everybody what she learned from Professor Sumal and about the Rylora that she learned about. She also explains that in the study, what they would do with her mom was play like some of her favorite music or have some of her favorite things around her when she went to sleep in order to like make her more calm, in order to help her facilitate like this dream experiment they were doing. So they're like, maybe we could do this for you. And they once again suggest like, let's send Laudna into the dream with you, since she, is so comforting to you. And Laudna also brings up, and what about these flowers that you used to love, like that grew where you grew up? So Orm starts like druid crafting the flowers to try to emulate them. Imogen and Fern then tell everybody about the Ludinus encounter, a little bit more about it. Fern says that he's not Ruidus born and could sense that he was jealous that they were. And then Imogen's like, but what if he kind of had some good points about the gods? Like, why are, maybe they should be kind of taken down a peg.
Right.
But they're like, but we certainly don't think it's a good idea to have Ludinus be the one making all the decisions. And they're kind of like debating back and forth on the merits of like this. And Orm kind of says like, these people killed my husband and my father. Like, I am not feeling any types of two ways about this. Like, I am still against them. And they're like, oh yeah, good point.
That's fair.
Yeah. So then basically they get ready to go to sleep for the night, and they are going to, F.C.G. rather, is going to cast his Dream Link spell to send not only Imogen, but also himself and Laudna into the dream. And that's where we go to break for the first half.
Yeah, so coming back from the break, we get this awesome dream sequence of Laudna, Imogen stepping into her Ruidus-esque dream with FCG and Laudna incorporated as these floating beads, floating spheres. Very cool. And there is this dark, stretching forest in front of her, very similar to the Feywild. In fact, they talked about prior to the dream, will dreaming in the Feywild be different? And it seems like it is. Looking behind her to see like the door she stepped into, she sees the moon of Ruidus hanging above her, basically. She decides basically to dig in further, and sure enough, finds herself almost like passing through time and space into this red, ruddy landscape, almost like this deserty, barren place, where she sees at first what she thinks is the city on Ruidus, and then comes to realize it is a ruin. In fact, it's not just any ruin. It seems to be implied that it is the ruin in Marquette where one of the Malleus keys is being built. She comes across a woman with lavender hair who she identifies as her mother, Liliana. And as she calls out to her, Liliana basically turns and sees her and is basically like, you shouldn't be here. Imogen fails a wisdom saving throw and is immediately cast into this spiraling void where she will eventually wake up from. And Laudna as well has a similar occurrence before deciding to sort of wake herself up, which she successfully does. The party wakes up from the dream and they're kind of like, okay, that was a bit wild. One detail for Ladna, I think she actually rolled like a natural 1 on her check. And because of her natural 1, Matt basically says, hey, you get a full night's rest, but you're going to have a point of exhaustion for the whole next day. Which, if they do something to my Ladna again, I'm going to riot. So, anyway, they basically share what happened, and Imogen's kind of like, I think like I actually went there. Like, I think I actually like moved myself there. And they have sort of this moment of realization of like, okay, if I could do that to my mother, does that mean they've been doing it to us? Like, have they been watching us this whole time? Have they been seeing what's been happening? They're not sure, but they're definitely pretty unsettled about what this could all mean. All that to say, they decide, let's visit Morri one more time before we head out to the site of the Feywild Key. So they go see Morrigan. Morrigan basically is like, hey, I have some cool stuff for you before you go on your adventure. The first thing that she gives to them is I think it was called like the Harrowfell Veils or something like that.
Yeah.
Basically, these are these items that can cause you to be invisible up to 3 people. So she hands that to them. Also hands them or gives Fern an item called the Gloomscale breastplates, which, according to Morgan, belong to a princess. And it looks both powerful and beautiful, which Fern quickly holds it up and is like, I love it, and spins around with it. And then the last thing that happens is Imogen asks, hey, when we know you can help us get back without like the timey-wiminess, like what's your advice? And Morgan's basically like, well, you're heading off to the Sablecast grounds. There is a gate, and when you go through that gate, just make sure you put this stuff on your face and on your cheeks, which Sam Riegel misheard what Matt said, but I won't say it here. But basically is like, put this yellow gunk on your forehead and on your cheeks before you go through. And then from there is basically like, hey, good luck. And don't forget that the Unseelie are extremely cruel. They're unrelenting. Just be very careful, basically. So the party heads out, and on their way out, they run into Dr. Nesbit, which I would envision as kind of like this gentleman bird person. And immediately, Dr. Nesbit and Fern have this nice reunion, and Fern tells them, this is what we're going to go do. And there's this great line from Dr. Nesbit that's like, oh, it sounds like you're going to die. You're going to die for sure, or something like that. Which is the second comment like that we've gotten on this journey, by the way. The other one coming from Planesrider Wren. So anyway, they head basically into the forest on the way to the Sablecast grounds. They've also been giving advice to be mindful of the trees, and if needed, to pay the iron tithe. But eventually, as they're passing through on their way to the Sablecast grounds, they get themselves into an encounter where a band of centaurs working for the Unseelie Court on like a contract basis, they basically come across F.C.G, and there's this great moment where almost like people patrolling the area and keeping outsiders away. They have this moment with F.C.G where F.C.G says like, we come in peace, or something like that. And there's like, there's more of them. Yeah. Which is such a great, nice little one line. Yeah. Anyway, the party had terrible stealth checks, and so they immediately get into combat. The centaurs, again, we typically just go through combat very quickly, but the centaurs do this cool moment of realizing that as they're talking to one another, they're like, well, we're not gonna be able to carry all of them back as our prisoners, so like, let's animate this massive tree. But other than that, they basically blow up one of the centaurs, as well as knocking out the rest of them. And they have this nice little moment of, you can call it mercy, or maybe the party's just too nice, where they basically let them keep their food on like the unconscious bodies, but they break all of their arrows except for one, so that they'll still, have something to defend themselves. But all that to say, the party then continues on towards the Malleus Key, and that is where our episode ends.
Boom. So yeah, that's episode 46, campaign 3, Night at Ligament Manor. Once again, if you're on that recap video and you want to watch our full discussion, the link will be down in the description box below. But Blake, what'd you think, man?
Great episode, man. We've been spoiled. We're getting every episode is like another chunky piece of Ruidus, what's happening like with the overall story. Like there's a lot happening every episode.
Yeah, and we're really like coming to a boiling point with this solstice coming up. But yeah, I liked it too. I really liked getting more of an insight into Morgan and this relationship with Fern. You know, if you've been watching our podcast, you know it's one of the main things we've been hoping to see for a long time now.
It was nice too. Or
go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, I was just
gonna say, you know, we had like this detail about Fern about her collecting things, and it was nice. It was a nice detail that, you know, basically she got that from Morri, who was like the ultimate collector. Because you know she would steal and want to take things, and it was like, yeah, like mother like daughter. And I forgot to mention this in the recap, but there was also that great dialogue with Fern, kind of sad too. Of Fern basically asks Morgan outright, like, are my parents really my parents? Which Morgan says yes, but Fern basically says like they don't feel like my parents, and kind of basically without saying it, it's kind of like you feel like my mom, and even says, you know, I want to retire here, like I want to come back here. And I think even actually on that conversation, Fern mentions that they've spent like several hundred years together, like something like that.
I mean, at least, I mean, I guess we don't know, but I think Fern's has claimed she's 200 and something. I want to say
she's 100. I think she's 112.
Okay,
but there was like a comment of like hundreds of years together or something. But we also know that Fern is much larger than her parents and seems much older than her parents as well.
Right. Which there obviously could be another shoe to drop here, but that's presumably because her parents went to the prime material plane, and the timey-wiminess of when you transfer from the Feywild to the plane, that's what kind of caused this long time dilation. Not that from her parents' perspective, they didn't realize that they were gone from her that long.
I think they thought it was like 7 years or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So real interesting. And I just, I think there's definitely more to unpack with Morgan. I think there's layers that we didn't really get to. But that being said, I feel pretty confident saying that she really does care about Fern. Like it seemed like, you know, like, cause there was always that wonder, like, was this a favor? Is she using Fern? And maybe she still does have some sort of ulterior motive in terms of, you know, why she decided to protect her or whatever. But it does seem like there is a genuine fondness there, which that was something I wasn't sure about. Which is it's just funny, I guess, that Ashley made this like, you know, grotesque arch hag her. Not, I guess it's not her mom, but you know what I mean. Like it's basically her parental figure.
I like how we just use not like the not beholder fight, not her not mom. Yeah, I agree with you. Seems to like really care about her, and then also the fact that she presumably lets Fern now come and go as she pleases. It does seem like affection rather than, you know, something else.
Yeah, and she basically with open arms welcomed all of these strangers into her domain, if you will. When there wasn't ever any like weird energy or like
hostility.
Or even I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Like there was never any like test or like even where she tried to maybe like take advantage of any of them in any like sort of moment. Like, oh, you know, Ashton, I'll take a look at you for a favor, or any type of like clever double wordplay or anything. Because I was wondering if we would get some of that. Because even if she does care about Fern, that doesn't mean she's gonna care about the rest of them, right? But there was none of that. She now that being said, that's not to say she's like this paragon of, you know, justice, because we got this garden, which I wanted to take your parse on this. Clearly those are people. We basically find that out. Because I think
the team nailed it from the get-go too, right?
Which I think I forgot to mention this in the recap, but there's some line where Morgan says like, yeah, I think it's like, when I was watching you, Fern, like some people did come, like most of them are
they
smart
waited
enough
for it.
not to come, but the ones that did, they now adorn my garden or something like
Right.
that. But why did Fern say that she made them? Is she just lying, or you think there's some, like, maybe Fern like does cut the hedges?
I think because she also says that oh man, what's the sun bear's name?
Sweet Pea.
Sweet Pea. I think she even mentioned that like Sweet Pea even helped or something, which they asked Sweet Pea directly, and Sweet Pea's like, "Oh, I kind of just like look over the place." Um, yeah, it's tough. It's tough with Fern because you never really know what she's being honest about,
Yeah.
and so part of me wonders if that was like a Matt and Ashley moment of her being like, "Yeah, I made them," and Matt's being like, "No, you didn't," or if she's just being, if there is like a more convoluted like, they're placed there, and then Ashley in kind of like this twisted way, or Fern in kind of this twisted way,
Like
not
trims them or
knowing, kind
something.
of,
Yeah.
yeah, like trims them and shapes them, or I mean, obviously she knows, she'd have to know, right? I mean, I don't know, but
She's such an unreliable narrator, but yeah. And speaking of Sweet Pea, it was fun to finally meet a couple of these names she's dropped at various times, starting all the way back in EXU. When Which I wanted to bring this up for another reason, so I guess we'll just put it right here. But in EXU, if you didn't see it, not Calamity, but the original Exandria Unlimited, for those of you that are unfamiliar, there was this moment where they go to the gate, and I'm wondering if this gate is going to be the same one they come back through. Presumably it is.
you think so?
I mean, this is okay, I'm kind of having a couple different conversations here, but let's just keep going. I think so because spoilers for campaign 2 campaign 1. I won't get too in depth on them, but there was a gate that was built to facilitate travel from the Feywild to the Prime Material Plane. And I guess there's no reason why there couldn't be more than one built. Like, it was just kind of never touched on. What was touched on was a gate that needed to be built. So if there's only one, then that has to be it. But maybe there's more, and maybe it's 30 years later, so there could just be more as well.
Yeah, it's in Tal'Dorei though, right?
Well, it would be in both, right? You'd have to have like a door. One side is in Tal'Dorei, one side is in the Feywild.
No, yeah, I know, but I mean, they would be coming out.
Oh,
in
right,
Tal'Dorei.
right.
And then they'd be a little bit of ways from Marquette.
True, I didn't think about that. So maybe there's one gate, but there's like different exit points, if that makes sense. Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. It would be really wild for them to come back to that spot from EXU. I will say it was cool. And for you guys who didn't watch EXU, there's this encounter where they have to fight. They fight Dark Fern is basically the best way to characterize it.
Mm-hmm.
And as they defeat Dark Fern and before the door closes, the portal closes, they see the shadows of Fern's pets.
Or what she at least thinks are her pets. But yeah, that's what I was getting to, because we got them introduced even back then. And I went and looked at this scene because I just wanted to see if there was any other like connective tissue that maybe would ring a bell or something. But she specifically mentions Sweet Pea, Peepers, and that's the bear and the rabbit. But then Bumpers is the other one, which we didn't meet Bumpers in this episode. Right. So I think he's a crocodile. So maybe we'll still meet Bumpers at some point while they're here. But I just thought that was fun that payoff from, not even in the campaign yet. EXU just finally got paid off, and we got to meet those characters.
I don't think this would happen, but it'd be wild if they came out of the gate and they like saw the Crown Keepers like leaving in the distance or something.
Yeah, that would be crazy. I mean, there's still so much to figure out there, because what was that Dark Fern? Like, was it some weird time travel thing? Was it some sort of like illusory spell that they just made to look like a dark fern to, who knows? But part of me wondered, that breastplate that she got, I was like, oh, is that going to make her look dark? Like Dark Fern? But I don't think that's kind of where that's going. But I am interested to see what that breastplate does. Right. I bet it's got some cool properties.
I do also like Matt rewarding each party member with like their own moment of like not just leveling up, but like in terms of like their player power, like leveling up in terms of possession. So because we've had Orem get the seedling sword, or upgrade a sword into seedling. Now we have Fern getting the Gloomscale breastplate. Like these are just cool story moments where it just feels very RPG esque.
Yeah.
So I'm just excited to kind of continue to see that happen.
Yeah, me too. I was real excited because it's kind of like Fern's moment in a way. So it's cool that she got
Yeah.
an
Well, and
upgrade.
we've also talked about the power discrepancy between basically the baddies and Bell's Hells and like how underpowered they are. But we've had some developments lately that have definitely, I still feel that to be true, but it definitely has bridged it just slightly. The two items I just mentioned, and then Ashton mentioning his very like Super Saiyan like movement of his hyper rage.
Yeah,
Like that was a cool detail as well.
that was really cool.
And then Imogen also got her feet, her Brutus born feet that we
Right.
talked about as well. So everybody's they're all getting things that are pretty interesting.
Yeah. And did Chetney get anything? Or is he, when he got like his trial, or is it just like a.
I don't think so. And I think he also like wanted Morri to look at like the bloody butcher's
Yeah, they did take a look at
apron.
that.
But I don't think so. But knowing the party though, he possibly did, and it just hasn't.
Right.
He just hasn't had any reason to use it yet.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the fun too. Like when Imogen did her
True.
Rudis feat, I think it was Travis Willingham who was like, "We're talking about this.
Yeah.
Like, what is this?" So he could have something. Who knows?
I bet he does. But yeah, okay. I kind of got lost on a tangent there, so I forgot where I started. But
We
basically,
were just talking about meeting the animals.
Yeah. So, and yeah, for those of you, I'm interested in the comments for any of you guys that think if that gate is the same gate, which I think it is, but I guess I just think that there could be more that have been created since then. But I'm real curious to see if they come out in Tal'Dorei now. If they even make it that far, maybe they get TPK'd in the Feywild.
There is some big TPK energy happening with, and I mentioned in the recap, Planeswriter Ren mentioning something, basically like half joking about it. Now, Dr. Nesbitt. I don't think it's like intentional, in the sense of like Matt, like suddenly being like, "Hey, you guys are all heading to a TPK," because it's not his style, and also be a little
Right.
heavy-handed. But part of me though does wonder if there is sort of like a slight subtle, like this is going to be extremely dangerous. So
I think so, and this is something we've talked about before, but it's going to continue to be relevant until the solstice happens. But clearly, this is above their pay grade in a lot of ways. Like this, they have certain aspects of it that they're trying to deal with, but on the whole, like it would be a TPK if they like tried to, face that head on. So I'm just so curious to see what happens here. Is like. And again, I don't want to just go into the territory that we've gone into numerous times, but it doesn't seem like they will be able to stop this, at least not fully. And so I'm just so curious to see kind of like what the playing field looks like once this happens. Like, and without getting into the meta drama with D&D and everything going on right now, is there going to be a clean sweep? Are we going to be, which,
you're really about this, huh?
and even if it's not, even if it has nothing to do with that, just that could still be what's happening. Which then we're talking deity level stuff here. So like, I mean, I think TPK is definitely on the table, but I agree with you that it's not like, that's not like a railroaded thing or anything that's happening. But it will be curious to see like what kinds of decisions they make. Like, I think that'll be on the table, which the circumstances of what exactly would depend on what they do. But I think like if they said like, we're going to run up to Ludinus and try to stop him, like that could lead to a TPK. So I don't know. I know I'm just rambling now, but I want to know what's going to happen with this solstice in this moment and just what the campaign's going to look like after that.
And we're on for the next 3 weeks, right? The calendar. Oh, actually, yeah, 3 weeks. Or today and then 2 more, right? And then they'll take the 23rd off. So
Yeah.
that'll take us. This was episode 47, right? No, 46.
46.
So we'll go right up to almost episode 50, and then we'll get a week off. 50 is just a nice round number. I just feel like something big. So I feel like something really big is going to happen in the next 4 episodes. Maybe even the Apogee Solstice. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it could feasibly, it should happen in the next 4 episodes, but with, like I mentioned before, it could be
style.
Yeah. Especially with the Feywild weirdness interjected. But I wouldn't be surprised if we got it in the next 4 weeks. I hope we do.
I mean, we'll have to see. I just because I'm so excited about, just like you, the implications of it, like what's going to happen. And I just want to see how the party deals with the power level of what they're coming up against. Obviously, can't take on Ludinus. We got a nice detail, by the way, on their description of Ludinus. How originally it seemed like he had just, muddle brain, whatever he casted on. I can't think of what the person's name is. The professor.
Sumal.
Yeah, but I think it was either Imogen or Fern. One of them said something like he had like some kind of presence or like not power over us, but almost like he was radiating kind of like a not charm person, but just something like kind of. You remember them saying something like that that wasn't really quite clear.
Yeah.
But I kind of just thought like, I mean, that alone communicates like the power discrepancy to me between him and the party. So
yeah, 100%. And I thought it was interesting that we got the confirmation, I guess is fair to say, that he's not Ruidus born.
Right, because Ashley Fern had that insight check, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and also the added detail that he was jealous of the Ruidus born.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, by the way, because it reframes his motives a bit from maybe this person who was there during the calamity who wants to destroy the gods to not that these things are mutually exclusive, by the way, but it also makes me wonder, they're collecting Ruidus born. Does he have something nefarious planned for them as well? Like maybe he knows unlocking the key is sacrificing all these Ruidus born. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 100% something like that going on, because why are they all being drawn to this place? Presumably, I mean, we don't know this for sure, but they're being drawn to this place north of Marquette. All these Ruidus borns are like flocking to Marquette. It's got to be for some reason, So I feel like they are going, like they're going to be like energy or something to fuel this unlocking of the prison, if you will.
Do you think, I want to go back to a comment you made a couple episodes ago. Maybe it was last episode. I can't remember. 2 episodes ago. No, it was last episode. A comment you made about Ludinus's motives with Predathos. And we were talking about, like, is he wanting just to free Predathos and like let nature run its course and like, yay, the gods are dead. But you made a comment that I thought was really interesting now in hindsight of, is he trying to ascend like the Matron of Ravens did? It's very thematic. It matches what we've seen in Calamity as well, with Vespin Chloris trying something similar, it seemed. Is Ludinus doing something similar now with Predathos and sees that as like the ultimate step in power over even the Ruidus born? I mean, it definitely feels like there's more ego involved in this and like personal benefit than just like, I hate the gods and I want to see them wiped out.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. It was interesting to find out he's not one, though, not a Ruidus born. I mean, because I could see like he's the one, not necessarily that like discovered this, but he's obviously been researching it at the very least and found his answer of how to deal with these gods. And it's Ruidus is this prison, and like I'm finding my way. And then he finds out that they're these Ruidus borns, which are like special chosen of it. I'm sure he would be like, well, I'm the one that's like the linchpin of this, and I'm not one. Like, so I feel like that's where it's coming from. But it's a good point. If they are being set up to be like a sacrifice, then surely he wouldn't be jealous, right?
Yeah.
So maybe
it would be. I do like how you position that, though. This person who's just so eager, and then their moment of realizing that they're not Ruidusborn. Maybe we'll get that in like a one shot or something. Who knows? But
yeah, I mean, I'm so curious to just see where all these pieces land. But yeah, I don't know what to make. As far as him like wanting to ascend to Predathos, I still think that's like, on the table, but it's definitely not my like guess as to what's happening. I don't think.
well, you said it originally, so you're stuck with it now. So.
Okay, that's fair.
But if it comes to be true, then I said it. So
all right, that checks out.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, in the near term, we have this Malleus key that they're heading towards. I am surprised that they didn't go to the Shadowfell, because that seemed like I think this is just an example of Matt giving them a genuine choice, honestly. And it just made sense to go the route of Morri. But I am curious what I'm guessing is an encounter looming, what that could look like.
Yeah. Well, the Shadowfell is also just like a really dangerous place. So I'm not too surprised that they didn't go there. But what was the word? Is it like that one's the least defended?
Right.
But probably because like just the Shadowfell itself is so crazy type of thing. Right. Yeah, I'm curious to see too. I wonder if we'd see Erica again. I'm guessing probably not. Maybe we see what was her name? You? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe we see you, but like Matt's playing them. And I don't think it's not even necessary to see you again. But I wonder if like are they? I mean, there's no way they're just going to waltz up in there and bonk the machine and then take their exit. Like, so I'm interested to see kind of who they deal with. Be that you or be that I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but whoever Yu's boss was, which was like some titled person.
That dude.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top right now. But part of Morgan's advice was like, depending on who you're dealing with, like act accordingly. And I'm just paraphrasing, but it was like, sometimes it's better to dance than fight.
Yeah. I think it was like boost their ego if they need like a gentle response or something.
Yeah. So I'm real curious just to see who they run into. I don't think Ludinus is going to be there, but I guess he could be. So I wonder if we'll find out any more about what the Unseelie Court's motivations are here. Like, are they just on the exact same page as Ludinus? Like, let's get the gods out of here. Have they at all been misled? Do they have any type of other motives that they're doing this for? These are just all the questions running through my head right now. Not really leading anywhere with this. But.
Yeah, and I don't know how deeply we'll get to indulge in it, in the sense of like, it definitely feels like a partnership that Ludinus has brokered. It is very curious though, like what did he offer that was in their interest? Mm-hmm. We know that Yu wants the Moontide crown back. And we presume it's to power the machine, but it seems like they're able to move ahead without it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So that they get some other artifact?
Or was the Moontide crown not related to the key in terms of like the Unseelie Court, in the sense of like they want it for something else? Like, did Ludinus like offer that like once the machine was done with it or something? And I have no idea. I don't know, but there's definitely some questions about those relationships for sure.
Yeah, and what's even going to happen? Let's say they're successful. Like, I don't know. It's the fact that it's the thing holding it in the Fae. I thought was really interesting. The device. So presumably, it's in the Shadowfell for the same reason, right?
Right.
Ruidus.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't see them stopping this on the whole. So does that mean they're not even going to be able to sabotage your machine, or maybe they can and it just affects the encounter, but not it doesn't prevent it or something? I don't know.
I see Matt again. I think I mentioned this before, but like with the Mighty Nine reunion, like yes, it's successful, and here's how it affected this next encounter, or like here's how that encounter is different. I could see something like that happening, but I also going back to the implications of like you're gonna die. Like I do wonder if they're a bit in over their head, and there will be some realizing of like we can't stop this. So like what is like our version of like a small victory?
Yeah.
Uh, so because I'm assuming for this solstice to move forward, well for Ludinus's plan to move forward, he needs all three keys. Um, so
Seems that way.
I guess I just don't see them like we destroyed it for good. Like we averted Predathos coming back. Like I just don't see that happening.
Yeah,
So
me neither. And this is kind of another conversation altogether, but and we mentioned it back when we first learned about Predathos, but let's say it is successful. Like, I wonder if any part of this also, because presumably part of whatever's happening here destroys that divine gate lattice around Ruidus, which then allows him to escape or whatever. I wonder if it would also be destroying the divine gate, because it would be interesting. Because I mean, if he's going to kill the gods, either the divine gate doesn't matter to him and he can pass through it and go kill them.
Bro.
But what if part of it is destroying the divine gate too? So he can't, like, if he can't get through the divine gate to get to them, then they're going to have to bring that down too, right? So
Bro.
be interesting implications of having.
Bro. This is a crazy thought. Yeah, I mean, you're right. If they destroy the divine gate around Ruidus, he still needs the other one gone to get to the gods. So
Yeah, unless he can just pass through it for some reason.
yeah, I mean, we did have a conversation about the calamity in this episode. Could we be heading towards a calamity 2.0?
I mean, even if the divine gate doesn't come down, it seems like yes, just from Predathos alone. So I think so. This definitely feels like change the shape of the Earth level encounter.
It could definitely set up like a campaign 4. I know we're not anywhere close to it, but would be like amazing to like see a new campaign take place in a post Calamity 2.0 world.
Yeah, I mean, especially like I don't know how long. There's a whole other conversation to talk about. Like, how long does Matt want to still be the DM? How long will we get these same group of people? Like, are they going to go all the way to campaign 13? You know, or at some point. So with that aside, it seems like at some point you would want to do something just a little different, just for your own sanity's sake. You know, so if you're opening up, you know, potential spell jammers if they travel to Ruidus or whatever, like maybe there's a whole new, like an entire new planet or entire new like universe within the multiverse, that the Critical Role multiverse, if you will. Anyway, all that to say is I could easily see him like planting seeds to set that up for him in the future to like do something completely new.
Yeah.
Which another thing, speaking of like the spelljammers and stuff and the city on Ruidus, maybe the solstice happens and it's successful, but like still they're on they're far away in space. So maybe like they still would need to go out there for some reason to try to like, well, he's free now, but let's take this fight to his doorstep and stop him before he can come here or something. Maybe that's unnecessary, but I think it would be cool to see spelljammers and to have them actually go to Ruidus, which is there any reason for them to do that if he is freed and like it's like he's going to stay up there, right? I don't know.
Yeah, and there's this weird like, is Ruidus just like the physical representation of like his prison, or like when he's freed, or they or for Predathos?
Yeah.
Does Ruidus like crack open like an egg?
Right.
He comes out of it, or yeah, I don't know. Part of me even had this thought of like the keys being like tractor beams. Like if they can keep Ruidus in the Feywild and the Shadowfell, can it like break the divine gate around it and like pull it? Like is that how they open up Ruidus, by like crashing it into Exandria? And so like that is the Calamity 2.0 event.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
That would be nuts.
But because it almost feels like if there is a city there, to me it's like they're gonna go there at some point, right? Or
right.
Or maybe it's like the ultimate lore point of like, here's why there was a city there. But since there is one there, I just think they would have to go at some point.
Yeah, or there needs to be some purpose to it, I would think, which I don't know. Again, maybe it was because presumably Ruidus was at one point part of Exandria, like, you know.
Right. I think there was like the commentary from someone they were talking to, like maybe a continent that no longer exists.
Yeah, so maybe it was that city originally, and now it's been, twisted in some way, or maybe it's a city that formed after the fact. I don't know, but like, do the Rylora live there? I don't know. Are the Rylora consecuted weird souls in a way, like we've kind of talked about? I still have so many questions. But
yeah, I think it's that, or like souls that were people that were killed whenever the imprisoning happened, and like their souls linger, and you can reach out to them in these dreams or something. I'm not quite sure, honestly.
Yeah, me neither. What if all the Rylora are going to like take over all these Rudisborn's bodies, like, in they will be their earthly vessels or something?
Yeah, I don't know. These kind of things though make me wonder, like, okay, what would that mean for Imogen, and maybe um Fern as well.
Yeah.
We know Fern's not an exaltant, but what does it mean for her? So
Yeah. Great points.
well, what else from this episode that you want to talk about?
So real quick, and this might not be worth like actually dissecting because it might just be like a thematic flair type of thing. But in the dream, often we've thought that she is going to Ruidus, and it seems like that is the implication. But again, maybe it's just like she's not literally going. Maybe she is. I don't know. But that's kind of what we got. But then clearly they were at the dig site on Exandria. Right. So do you think that like Ruidus is just like a placeholder for this like astral projection, or do you think in some way she actually was on Ruidus, but she was just like having a vision while there of Exandria?
I think it's the former. I think we've been thinking maybe it's like Ruidus or something, but I think it's the former, because if you go back to her original dreams, it was always at her house, her home house. So I do think it's some kind of like spiritual astral projection kind of thing that's happening, that she's just now kind of starting to realize, like, I know Kung Fu.
Yeah.
Like, and I can do these things. So, and how terrifying is it to then wonder, have they been being spied on this whole time? So
it seems like it, right? Because surely Atahan would have a much greater grasp on this power, which is just funny that they've been checking the orb so often. One, I don't think she has that ring anyway, but two, it'd be funny if she's like had eyes on him the whole time.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
She's looking at the ring and she's like, huh, and she's like holding the thing. Like,
wait a minute.
I should get rid of this. So,
but yeah, crazy that like she mentioned that her mom wasn't even asleep and she could still kind of like scry on her essentially.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested to see how that develops if we see more use of that power. And I wonder if that aspect of what she was doing is the same way that we know they can communicate and join each other's dreams. Like, is that what Odahan was doing when she showed up in Imogen's dream in that one episode,
I think so. That's kind of where I think that's the connection being made, is kind of where my mind went.
It would make sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, I think not really much else I wanted to make sure we touched on. Just, I mean, a lot of this episode is just us, speculating on the what ifs and what's going to happen with this solstice. That's pretty much all I've got still. I did.
Last thing, go ahead.
This is unrelated, but which is one thing I thought was really cool is in that centaur fight, when they all like cast a spell at the same time. Reminded me of like a Chrono Trigger dual tech or full team tech. Did you play Chrono Trigger?
Yeah.
So
yeah, very much was pretty cool. The thing that I was going to say was I was just say Matt did not disappoint for me, going to Morgan's Manor, the Ligament Manor. all the flavor and creepiness and the collection room, all of it was just very unsettling in just the best way. So
yeah. Oh, and we mentioned it during the recap, but that heart in the box, that was such cool lore, and I wonder if we might ever meet, if not that exact captain, like just meet the Lion's Guard, I want to say they were called.
It'll come up in one of your campaign 4 breakdowns.
There we go.
So, be like, this was a nod to a character from campaign 3 4 years ago.
That would be cool. And
So, anyway.
One other thing that I just remembered was the princess, the slain princess that the breastplate was from. Not that I think that's like integrally important or anything, but I'm really curious to like know more about the lore there.
It did make me wonder if the item was cursed in some way.
Yeah,
because I could see Morrigan in like a half-truth kind of way, like rewarding her, but then also leaving out like a keen detail. So
yeah, because she made it sound like she just found it like on the battlefield after the fact, and because I was originally thinking like you killed a princess, but
she also said like I think. Or sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say maybe she did, but she claimed she didn't.
She said something like, "I think you're ready for this now," which, if it's just like when I give it to her earlier, like when she first left. So, yeah,
that's a good point.
I'm curious about it. But.
Very curious.
All right, well, you guys let us know what you thought about the episode down in the comments, including all your favorite theories and thoughts. And don't forget, we are getting this episode up pretty late, but there is a watch party tonight for Legend of Vox Machina, episodes 7, 8, and 9. We will absolutely be cracking the whip to Will to get those breakdowns up as well. And anything else you want to share, Will?
No, I don't think so. Just appreciate y'all hanging out with us as always.
Maybe a little thumbnail action?
Oh yeah. I don't know.
I liked either something related to like the collection room or the garden with like the petrified people or plant. What do they call them? Topology people or something? Or
yeah. So maybe we just do like a weird pose or something, like we're plants.
Maybe one of us is like kind of frozen, terrified, and the person's like like very Edward Scissorhands, like very joyously like clipping away or something.
Okay.
Which one do you want to be?
Well, you pick since it's your idea.
I'll be the clipper.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Let me get in frame here.
Okay. Doesn't really capture the clipping animation for us still, but we got it.
The people that watched understand.
Yeah. Thank you guys. We so appreciate it. And we'll catch you later.
Bye, y'all.